Now, over the past couple of years, when it comes to the Star Wars franchise, we have seen a lot of ups and downs, especially ever since the very end of the sequel trilogy by J.J. Abrams when he concluded with The Rise of Skywalker. That's where things began to resolve when John and Dave came on board, introducing both Mando Season 1 and 2, with Season 3 and 4 now in the works, and 3 just on the horizon from its release date. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, J.J. Abrams, alright, he's been a little bit more revealing as of late, putting things more out there, more truthful scenarios of, how he was involved with the sequel trilogy movies and how he had to make certain decisions that were against his call, and a lot of other things that really came to light over the past couple of months. Now, given that J.J. Abrams has been making it very clear that not all the choices that were made in The Rise of Skywalker, as it turns out, were really not because of his fault, but it was really all contributed to Kathleen Kennedy and Disney CEO Bob Iger at the time before he was let go in early 2020. He's back now, by the way. But the thing about the sequel trilogy movies is that it was a very inconsistent flow of Star Wars films, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that JJ left midway through the trilogy. He wanted nothing to do with Episode 8. He wanted to focus on other things. He wanted to take a break from Star Wars. In fact, he himself didn't even want to really come back for Episode 9. He was kind of really, talked into it, and they twisted his arm to come back for Episode 9. So with that being said and all, with director J.J. Abrams becoming more transparent about his experience on the set of both Force Awakens and Episode 9, he recently unveiled a new truth about Disney and Lucasfilm and had lots of things to say in a recent interview. Now, JJ went on to state the following: I wanted to come forward to say that I believe that the ending that I was actually making, I was forced to make, was a terrible decision that was, of course, at the time being forced down by Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy. They wanted me to just kill off all the Skywalkers. It wasn't in my nature to send off Ben Solo the way that I did. This was not my decision. I actually had a more uplifting ending set in place in which Ben Solo survives and joins Rey on Tatooine as a redeemed character and showcasing that the Skywalkers live on. The real bloodline lives on and literally walks into the sunset. I had this one in my original scripts, and Kathy walked up to me and said that we can't do this, since it was too open-ended. Now let me just pause here quick for a second of what JJ is really putting forward. Now, JJ is making it very clear that he wanted Ben Solo to live on, to survive, to keep that Skywalker bloodline alive. Kathleen Kennedy at the time did not want that, obviously. It was an agenda. She wanted none of the Skywalkers by blood to live. She wanted nothing open-ended. She didn't want any kind of chance of, the Skywalkers to essentially, get retold in new movies. And that's basically why. Now, given that J.J. Abrams is also making it clear that he had this ending in sight, in which Ben Solo would live, join Rey on Tatooine, and you would have literally two of the characters walking off into two sunsets. I mean, guys, it's so poetic, it just was such a missed opportunity. Two characters walking off into two sunsets on Tatooine, you couldn't get better than that. I mean, that would have been brilliant, scenery-wise and just story-wise. The thing about this, too, as to why J.J. Abrams had a lot of problems with it, is that he's going to go into this, is the romantic aspect between both Ben and Rey, and Kathleen Kennedy's explanation is actually pretty poor, and based on what JJ says here, so let's tap into that too. So on top of this, he goes on to state, so when I was told to write the ending, you got my problem with what Disney was making me do was how Ben Solo and Rey fall in love for 2 minutes, only for that love to be broken apart. So what JJ is saying here, is, I do agree with it, by the way, is that it did feel very disconnected. You had a moment where Rey and Ben have this romantic moment, and it just ends at the flick of a finger, like that, in 2 seconds. It didn't feel right to me, and it didn't feel right to a lot of fans. It felt very forced. It almost came off like Disney was just kind of inserting, kind of like fan service for the people that like the whole Reylo thing, and to just immediately give them a little snippet of that, only to end it in 1, 2, 3. I mean, even the people that like the whole Reylo thing weren't really all that appreciative of what Disney did with that moment. So, obviously, J.J. Abrams had better plans. He wanted Ben Solo to live on, to join Rey, and to live on forever with her. And on either, walking off into the sunset, which was one of his ideas, or just making it a little bit more vague, stuff like that. Now, on top of this, too, JJ, you guys may recall, we talked about this about 6 months ago, he also wanted Ben Solo, after he died, to become a Force ghost. Disney also did not want that to happen because they also wanted to keep opportunities open for Ben Solo. And you can see why. We already know that John and Dave are now picking up on bringing Ben back in various ways. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and how that's going to involve something with the World Between Worlds. However, he goes on to state, it just didn't make much sense to me, and what bothered me even more was how Kathy said that she had creatives like Pablo and others putting it into the novelization that their kiss was not a romantic one, but more of a congratulation of victory. It's the biggest problem I had with Disney at the time working on these movies, and how the ending kept on changing every 2 months for us on set. So once again, I heavily agree with what JJ is saying here about especially what was put into the novelization. Poor choice, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew this. In the novelization, basically the book of The Rise of Skywalker, toward the end, they do flat out, make it known that Rey and Ben's kiss, quote unquote, was not romantic, was not out of love in the sense that you would think. The kiss on the lips, Kathleen Kennedy believes and made it canon and forced it to become canon that it was not romantic, that it was more like a congratulation of victory. It makes no sense to me, and it's just mind-boggling that somebody could have two people kiss on the lips and not call it romantic. It just, I don't even know what to say, So, when you look at stuff like that between JJ having his struggles with that decision with the novelization, he had a lot of problems with what Kathleen Kennedy labeled as canon, that it was not romantic. I think that the fans are just gonna think whatever they want to think. I myself will agree that it was a romantic send-off between both Rey and Ben. The movie is the movie, right? The novelization was kind of poor when it came to some of the actual moments in that book. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you also very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one from night to moon.